that has a challenge item to come on up, grab a ticket, drop a ticket, and I'll leave the microphone up on the stand up here.
All right, I'll go first. The challenge was make a lidded vessel or box. So my wife is a quilter, so I made a spool of thread. It's a box with some spalted maple. So it's beaded with an 1/8" beading tool. And then, of course, I made the a fake hole in the spool. And then on the inside is a little brass coin that I turned out of a 1/2" brass bar. It's got some concentric rings on it. So that's my piece.
Very nice. Wow.
This box has been in progress for a while. It is lidded. And it has a space in the top for putting an enamel on it. It's red iron bark, and I had bought the piece from, it's an Australian hardwood, and I had bought the piece. It came very wet and sealed in wax, and I turned it once and it was soaking wet, and it took a year to dry. And then I turned it again and it had ovaled a bit, and I will avoid returning hardwoods on the inside as much as I can in the future. But while it's not obvious, some of the flute wood was also red iron bark, so some of you may actually have some of this stuff.
This one just talked to itself, and I call it a volcano candy dish. And it's double turning, whatever you wanted, and stuff like that. That's it.
This was jam chucked several times, including the lid. I actually cracked the tenon when I pulled it out of the jam chuck. And so it's a good idea to, well, maybe not be quite that tight, but fairly tight. And so it's sycamore, and then it's got a African blackwood little bead on it with a mortise and tenon. And it's supposed to be a either a very large cat or a medium-sized dog funereal urn.
So I guess I don't make boxes that often because I had no idea what I was doing making a box, and I should probably take Anthony's class. But I did jam chuck, and that was the whole point, was to try to do jam chuck. So I think I did 3 different jam chucks when I made this. Whether or not I needed to do 3 is a different story. I probably only needed 2. But I made a box and I used jam chucks, and it's probably going to break apart, but my kids will have a lot of fun playing with it. And it's made out of sycamore. I will have to make more.
So I came in Saturday with the total intent of making a box, but I didn't worry about it being a big box. So I had a piece of cocobolo. It was about a 3x3 piece, and shaped it, got the lid to fit really well, to the point where I had to really figure out how I was getting it off when I got it home, and actually had to loosen it up a little bit, but ended up with a nice little shape, and used the Watco 3-blend mix. It's not Watco, but the 3-blend mix for the finish, which gives it kind of a dull sheen, and I kind of like the way it looked on that wood. Anybody else? I'm gonna show it off like it's mine. Have at it. Here's my most beautiful box I've ever made. It's got a million segments to it. Not quite that many. Okay. It's another segmented box. It's a quarter sawn white oak. I used a jam chuck, and I use a lot of faceplates. So instead of, and I make a bunch of these at one time. So I don't have the ability to keep spending $30 for a faceplate. So I bought a 1 1/4 by 8 tap from Beal, and now I make my own wooden ones. And what I do, I make them out of maple, and then I glue poplar, basically throwaway board on top of it, and then glue my blank to it. That way I can just make up a dozen of them, and I don't have any problem. Oh, and then it's epoxy or polyester resin, and it's got gold, silver, and red maybe. And it because it wasn't a solid color, solid finish, I dyed the recess so that it wouldn't show up as white. Do this drawing. Sue, can you draw us a number out of that bowl? Oh, okay. Impartial, sorry. David Stalling. We got 318. Ed, way to go. I want to see something made with that so I can see how they work out. So, all right. Thank you all for attempting the challenge and creating some boxes for us to all look at. We are going to go right into our show and tell table. And if you brought something in, come on up here and talk about it.
Okay, my wife, as I said, is a quilter, so she saw an idea for a binding box. And what it is it's like a knitting bowl. It has a slot in it. This comes out, you wind this binding on it. The binding is what goes around the edge of a quilt. And so this drops in, and the binding comes out through here. They have trouble with the binding bunching up, trying to sew it in. So what this does is it orientates the binding, and so they can just pull it out and sew it as it goes. It's a piece of walnut, and so she likes it and is going to be able to use it. The other thing that I, for show and tell, is I got a piece of white oak. It was very green, and I made a real thin bowl. Wanted it to warp. I was trying to help it warp, and so it broke into a couple pieces, but I use this as my test piece. This is the wood as it was, kind of white. I made a 15-inch platter out of it, and I thought, well, that's pretty plain. So I fumed it. The platter's back there, but I fumed it with ammonia. I tried this part over here is just the ammonia being fumed. This part over here, I added some strong tea onto it to see if I get more tannins. It would turn darker. I think the darkness is just the stain from the tea, but I used household bleach or ammonia, which worked well. I also used 30% ammonium hydroxide, and that is potent stuff. I don't recommend it. If anybody would like some 30% ammonium nitrate, I know where they can get it for cheap.
Anybody else?
I thought we were supposed to bring I thought we were supposed to bring a vase, for the challenge. So I made this thing here. The title bond guy would have kind of liked it because it's glued together by their stuff. And originally I made a vase, but then they said a box, so I made a top. It's one of those things. I guess when you do wood stuff, you can do whatever you want and end up with it.
World entertainment.
Well, I'm not sure what the word serendipity means, but if you ask the question to somebody about what do you think about that piece of wood in the fire pit there, and they say, would you like to make something out of it? And you say, yes, I think it qualifies. But anyway, it was a cherry log about twice as long as this. And I thought it had been in the barn at least 10 years. And so it was dry as it could be. And it had a lot of outside splits. And so I decided, well, if you use a colored wood filler on the outside to highlight the cracks, it ought to be okay. So this is really hard to turn. That's all I'll say about cherry. And it was. So I kind of did this like you were doing a enclosure, and worked it with a stabilizer type cutter, but it was getting real hairy in the bottom. So the other piece that I got brought is a burl that I just recently acquired, was in the Facebook marketplace under maple burl. Well, when I got it together with the guy that had it for sale, it was 1,000-pound burl, and this is a picture of the burl in the tree. And I got 3 pieces of it that are about that big and that not too thick. But it is a black maple burl. And I have never run into black maple before, but there's the leaf and all matches the literature. So that's the story. So we'll have some more pieces, but it must be 30% water, and it is so heavy that those pieces weigh probably over 120 pounds. So it's got to dry a long time. But anyway, I was real happy, and I have two pieces of maple, which were a crotch below this. That'll be real nice bowls.
I saw a vase on Pinterest one time, and it was called a fragmented vase or something like that. And so I had a couple of bowls that I had turned but never put any finish on, and didn't know how I was going to finish them. They were really basic bowls. And so I did what I emulated what I'd seen on Pinterest. I didn't do a lot of studying on it, but basically used a Dremel tool to get my grooves in, and then took different tones of dye and dyed areas so that I kind of variated the tones all the way around. And as I was finishing it up, my son decided initially that it looked like a turtle, and then he said it looked like a strawberry in the end, and he didn't know why. But I thought it turned out pretty cool. But when he said turtle and turtle shell, sent me down a whole another wormhole. And I had another piece that I think was the brother to this one, maybe. But I had turned it, and decided I was going to take that same concept and create a turtle shell out of it. So I incorporated the foot into the turtle shell, looked at a couple images online, got the basic shape, and when I was done, I thought that was kind of fun. And this was the same concept with a piece of cherry, so I don't have quite the contrast in the colors that were popping out. And I left the lines natural and put I just put some sanding sealer and painted the lines before I started putting the color on, so it would stay that lighter color and separate. And I don't know, they're kind of fun. I'd never seen anybody do anything like that. So this almost looks like an armadillo too. So. Anthony, if anybody didn't see it, go over and look at Anthony's huge hollow form there. I want to thank everybody for sticking around. I know that we ran a little bit long, but I thought it was a pretty interesting and worthwhile demo that we were getting from Type Bond, which kind of surprised me. I didn't know what to expect. Anybody that has a little time and can help put the chairs away, and we got some equipment to get back out here, that'd be great. But I appreciate everybody coming, and hope to see you all next month. Thank you all. Thanks, Phil.